My wife Ashley asked that I build a rolling library ladder for her office bookcase, and I thought that was a great idea until I saw the price of the hardware for one of these ladders. $1,700 for both the ladder and the rail was a pretty average price. I thought I could do better than that, and I did. I was able to build the ladder and all of the hardware for $100. So if you were looking to make one of these, then I have this two-part series. First part, I am just making the wooden ladder here. So if you do want to pay the $500 or $600 for the hardware, then you'll know how to build the ladder. But if you want to see how to save that $1,600, then you can follow the second part where I make the hardware for this ladder. So let's jump into the build. Now that I have the ladder built, it's time to get the pipe cut that's going to go across the top for the ladder to glide back and forth on. Now my room is 141 inches across, so I'm going to cut this pipe down to 140 inches to give me a ½ inch on each side of the wall. I'm going to use the angle grinder to cut this piece off. I may have to change out my wheel. It's a little bit on the small side. Because this cut-off edge is rather sharp, I'm going to use an 80 grit flap disc on my angle grinder, and that's going to just reduce that sharp edge and make it nice and smooth. There we go. Now, even though these are going to be up against the wall, I still want them to be barb free so it's not going to hurt anybody. To attach the pipe to the bookcase, I'm going to be using 7 of these 1/4 inch hanger bolts. Now, a hanger bolt has a wood screw on one side and a regular thread on the other. And this is just going to go into the bookcase and stick out this 1.5 inches or so. And that's what the pipe is going to attach to. I'm going to measure down from the ceiling, 15 3/4 inch. That's where I want this to be placed here. Okay, I'm going to use 2 different drill bits. A smaller bit so I can control where this goes. Now I have a bubble level on top of my drill that I'm going to be watching as I drill this in here. I'm going to swap out to a 13/64 bit. I know it's a bit ridiculous, but that's what it is. This will basically allow me to get the body of the hanger bolt in here, but allow the threads to dig in here and not crack the wood any. So once again, I'm going to observe that bubble level as I'm pushing this in here, because it needs to be level. Now that I have the hole placed here in my bookcase, I'm just going to take the hanger bolt and begin spinning this in here. This step takes a little while, and I can use some pliers or these channel grips, channel locks to get this in here. I'm going to grab mostly on the wood screw part of this, just so I prevent stripping out that other thread. I now have all 7 of the hanger bolts installed, and they are pretty close to level. I had a little bit of issue down here on this side because this shelf actually slopes up. So as you can see, there's about an inch difference here, but if you move over here, there's more like 1.25 inches. So this is actually where it needs to be, but the shelf is a little higher. I've set the metal pipe up here where I want it. I'm going to use a silver marker to indicate where I want each of these to be screwed into. Now it's time to put the drill holes into this metal pipe. I have all of the locations for where the hanger bolts are, but in order to get a consistent hole every time, I'm going to use a chalk line to snap a single line across the top of the pipe. That way I will know that I'm getting the same hole direction every time. I have the metal pipe set up in the drill press, and I'm going to be using a series of drill bits to put the holes into this pipe. Now, for the hanger bolts, I just need a 1/4 inch hole, but for these sleeve nuts, I'm going to have this 3/8. So it's going to be a lot of work, and I'm going to go ahead and get to it. I'm wearing a mask in case any metal is going to be flying out. I don't have any real cutting fluid, so I'm just going to have to use some WD-40 here. Hopefully it'll work just fine. Okay, I have the first hole drilled. Let's make sure that, okay, 1/4 inch fits in there no problem, and this sleeve nut also fits in there. Very nice. So eventually, it's my goal to have this drill press on a rolling cart, and I'll have some kind of platform that also raises up and down, so I can match the height and do this kind of work. But for now, I'm having to adjust my location on the table for where I want to drill, and it's a little bit awkward. I have some black spray paint that I'm going to use to get this pipe coated. To get the U wheels attached to the ladder, I have this piece of 90-degree angle, and I need to cut a 4-inch piece out of this. So I'm going to use my square here and mark that 4-inch piece. And I'm going to use the angle grinder to cut this out. There we go. Of course, I'm using my face shield as well as earplugs. I'm going to use the flap disc on the angle grinder to smooth off all the edges, especially the ones that were just cut. To keep the pipe away from the bookcase, I'm going to install a couple of nuts on here. First, I have a stop nut that has the nylon piece inside. Get that wound on there. With that, I'm also going to install a regular nut here. Get those on. Now it's time to see if this pipe actually fits up here. Ooh. I just put a hole in the wall. I have a sleeve nut installed here, and I'm going to use my Allen wrench to tighten that down. The double nut system allows me to tighten down onto the pipe here, really tight, and then I can come back behind it with the other nut and tighten onto that one, so it's not going to be going anywhere. I went ahead and finished the first of the 90-degree pieces. It's going to be oriented like this with the ladder over here and the roller wheels on this side. Now I'm going to go ahead and step through this process on this side for you. So I've marked the first location right here, and that's going to be this bottom hole. This first hole needs to support a sleeve nut, and so I'm going to use a series of drill bits to get through this. Now to assemble these U wheels that have bearings in them, I'm going to place a washer in here, and then place my bolt, turn it over, place another washer, and then I have a regular nut that's not a locking nut. I'm going to get that on there, and I can give that a little bit of a snug down here. Doesn't have to be super tight. And then I'm going to have another washer on top of that, and then this is going to go into that metal bracket and have a locking nut on the back side of that, like that. To hold the wheel brackets to the wood, I need to cut a 1 1/4 inch piece of all thread to go inside of that ladder. Due to a small hiccup in my design, I had to recut this metal piece because it needed to be a little bit longer down here. And that's just something that happened. And hopefully if your ladder is perfectly squared up, you won't have to have that piece, but I did. Okay, so I've got my washers and my wheels put together here. I'm gonna go ahead and get these installed, just using a couple of washers to keep that wheel out away from the plate just a little bit here. Then I'm going to be using my 2 ratchets to tighten this together. I'm going to tighten this top one pretty good here, but keep the bottom one mostly loose, and that's so I can get this onto the pipe without having any real issues here. I have the 2 sleeve nuts with all thread, and I'm going to be using those to get this piece attached. There we go. And I'm going to get this piece set in here. I'm going to be using an Allen wrench to get this tightened down here. And that concludes part 2 of this rolling library ladder build. I hope you have enjoyed it. Do hit that share and like button to help the channel out. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.